The phone rang just as my colleagues were raising their glasses to celebrate my promotion to senior project manager. I stepped into the hallway of our Denver office building expecting congratulations from my family. Instead, my mother's cold voice cut through the celebration like ice water. "Gibson, we're converting your old bedroom into a playroom for Chloe and Madison. Amanda needs the space for the twins." I felt my stomach drop as she continued without pause. "Your sister's family will always come first. You are always last." Before I could respond, my father's voice came through the speaker. "Your mother's absolutely right, son. You should have expected this. Amanda has real family responsibilities, while you're just one person." The line went dead, leaving me standing frozen in that corporate hallway, holding my phone like a weapon that had just been turned against me. Growing up in the suburbs of Denver, I learned early that love in our household came with conditions and rankings. My sister Amanda, 4 years my senior, occupied the throne of parental affection with an ease that seemed as natural as breathing. She possessed an effortless charm that made adults smile and nod approvingly, while I struggled with dyslexia that made reading feel like decoding enemy messages. The differences in treatment weren't subtle. Amanda received piano lessons every Tuesday at $40 per session, while I was told music wasn't practical for boys who needed to focus on mathematics. When Amanda struggled with algebra, our parents hired a private tutor at $60 per hour. When I couldn't read at grade level, they told me to try harder and stop making excuses. The car situation at 16 crystallized everything. Amanda's Sweet 16 party featured a brand new Honda Civic with the enormous red bow, complete with professional photography to capture her surprise and delight. 2 years later, I received a lecture about responsibility and a summer job at a construction site, earning $8 per hour to save for my own transportation. I eventually bought a beat-up Honda with 130,000 miles and a transmission that shuddered at every traffic light. College planning revealed the same pattern. Amanda chose an expensive liberal arts school 3 states away, with our parents covering tuition room board and a generous monthly allowance for entertainment and clothes. I applied for every scholarship available, worked 25 hours per week at the campus bookstore, and graduated with $42,000 in student loans that would follow me for the next decade. But Amanda found something better than finishing college. She met Todd during her sophomore year, a real estate agent 8 years older with a confident smile and ambitious plans. When she announced her engagement after dropping out, our parents threw an engagement party that cost more than my entire college education. They called it Amanda Finding Her True Purpose and the beginning of something beautiful. I methodically built my career in electrical engineering, starting at a small consulting firm where I learned to read blueprints and understand the intricate systems that make buildings function. I worked overtime without complaints, took on projects other engineers avoided, and slowly earned respect through competence rather than charm. My promotion to project manager at Morrison Construction came after 5 years of proving myself on increasingly complex commercial developments. I bought my own modest townhouse in a quiet neighborhood 20 minutes from downtown Denver. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, a small yard, where I could work on weekend projects without disturbing neighbors. I furnished it slowly, choosing quality pieces that would last, rather than impressive items that would impress visitors I rarely had. Family gatherings became exercises in invisibility. Amanda and Todd married in a ceremony that cost $68,000, featuring a reception at the Denver Botanic Gardens, with 200 guests, an 8-piece band, and a photographer whose work appeared in Colorado wedding magazines. I attended alone, wearing a suit I'd bought specifically for the occasion, watching our parents beam with pride as they danced with their daughter. When the twins arrived 5 years ago, the family universe reorganized completely around 2 small girls with blonde curls and demanding voices. Chloe and Madison became the sun around which every conversation, every holiday plan, every family decision orbited. My achievements became footnotes mentioned briefly before discussion returned to the twins' latest developmental milestones. My promotion to senior project manager warranted a 3-minute phone call from my mother. The twins learning to ride bicycles prompted a family barbecue with extended relatives and professional photography. When I successfully managed the renovation of the historic Colorado State Bank building, my parents nodded politely before launching into detailed descriptions of the twins' performance in their preschool play. Sunday dinners at my parents' house followed predictable scripts. I would arrive with flowers for my mother or a bottle of wine for my father, only to find the conversation already deep into Amanda's latest domestic challenges or the twins' educational needs. Todd would dominate discussions with stories from his real estate career, while Amanda managed the girls with theatrical exhaustion that earned sympathy and offers of help. I started noticing the financial implications during one of these dinners. While using the bathroom, I passed through the kitchen and glimpsed financial documents scattered across the counter. Mortgage statements, bank paperwork, and what appeared to be loan applications. The numbers caught my attention because I recognized the formatting from my own home buying process. Curiosity overcame discretion. The documents revealed a $60,000 second mortgage on my parents' home, a house they'd owned free and clear for over a decade. The mortgage date corresponded exactly with Amanda's wedding planning period 3 years earlier. Additional paperwork showed monthly payments of $487, a significant burden on my father's retirement income from his postal service career. They had mortgaged their security to fund Amanda's perfect wedding day, never mentioning financial strain, never asking for assistance from either of their children, never acknowledging the sacrifice they were making exclusively for their daughter's happiness. I sat in my car outside their house for 20 minutes after that dinner engine running heat blasting against the November cold. The financial favoritism ran deeper than piano lessons and tutoring sessions. They had literally invested their home's equity in Amanda's happiness, while expecting me to fund my own life entirely through personal effort. The dashboard clock read 8:47 when I finally put the car in gear and drove home, understanding for the first time the true mathematics of my family's love. 3 weeks later, I decided to address the mortgage discovery directly. Sunday dinner provided the opportunity when conversation naturally turned to family finances. Amanda was complaining about the cost of the twins' private kindergarten tuition, while Todd explained his latest real estate deal that would supposedly solve their budget concerns. I waited for a pause in the conversation before speaking carefully. I noticed some financial documents in the kitchen last time I was here. It looks like you took out a second mortgage a few years ago. The silence that followed felt heavy enough to crush glass. My mother's fork stopped halfway to her mouth, while my father's eyes found sudden fascination with his mashed potatoes. Amanda looked confused, unaware of any mortgage details, while Todd shifted uncomfortably in his chair. "That's really none of your business, Gibson." My mother finally replied, her voice carrying the tone she'd used when I was 12 and asking questions she didn't want to answer. "I'm not trying to pry," I continued, keeping my voice steady. "I just want to understand the family's financial situation. If there's stress or difficulty, maybe I can help somehow." My father cleared his throat with the authority he'd developed during 30 years of supervising postal workers. The mortgage was necessary for Amanda's wedding. She deserved a proper start to her marriage, and we were happy to provide that foundation. The casual dismissal of $60,000 as necessary for one day struck me like physical blow. I'd worked through college to avoid burdening them with educational expenses, while they'd enthusiastically borrowed against their retirement security for Amanda's party. "I understand wanting to help with the wedding," I said carefully. "I just wonder why the financial planning didn't include both children. I never knew you were struggling with money, and I would have contributed if asked." My mother's laugh contained no warmth. "You're being dramatic, Gibson. Amanda was starting her family and needed our support. Your situation is completely different." "Different how?" I pressed, genuinely wanting to understand their logic. You're single, Amanda interjected, speaking for the first time since my questions began. You don't have real responsibilities like we do. Todd and I have the girls to think about, mortgages to pay, school costs to manage. Your life is basically just taking care of yourself. The conversation escalated when I asked about longer-term financial planning and inheritance arrangements. My parents exchanged glances that communicated years of private discussions I'd never been part of. We've been meaning to discuss this with both of you. My father began, his voice taking on the formal tone he used for serious announcements. We've decided to leave the house, and most of the estate to Amanda and her family. The girls will need educational support, and Amanda will need security as they grow up. Aimé Dubé. My mother nodded approvingly. You'll receive some savings, of course, but the house should go to the family that will actually use it. $400,000 in property value needs to stay with the grandchildren. The financial blow was devastating, but the casual assumption about my future proved even worse. We're also assuming you'll eventually move back home to help with our care as we get older, my mother continued matter-of-factly. Amanda can't manage that responsibility with the twins, and you have the flexibility in your schedule. My father agreed enthusiastically. It makes perfect sense. You're single, you have time, and we raised you to be responsible. Amanda's got her hands full with her real family obligations. They had planned my entire future around serving their needs while ensuring Amanda inherited everything. I would provide elder care service in exchange for eventually receiving some savings, while my sister gained a house worth $400,000 plus additional assets. I excused myself politely, claiming early morning work obligations. Outside, I called my best friend Marcus, a financial planner I'd known since college. He listened without interruption as I explained the inheritance plan and caregiving expectations. Gibson, they've literally made you the family servant, Marcus said bluntly. They're expecting you to provide free elder care for potentially decades, while your sister inherits everything and contributes nothing to their support. This isn't family loyalty. This is exploitation. His perspective clarified what I'd been feeling but couldn't articulate. My family had systematically devalued my worth while inflating my obligations. They expected maximum service for minimum reward, justified by the fiction that single people have fewer legitimate needs than married people with children. That night, I opened new bank accounts at a different financial institution. I changed my emergency contact information from my parents to Marcus. I researched financial independence strategies and calculated how much money I needed to save for complete self-sufficiency. Then I composed a brief text message to my parents. Good to know where I stand. I'll plan my life accordingly. I hit send, then turned off my phone and slept better than I had in months. The next 6 months passed with minimal family contact and maximum personal growth. I threw myself into building genuine independence, treating my previous family dependence like recovering from an addiction that had slowly poisoned my decision-making. My career accelerated when I volunteered to lead the downtown renovation of the historic Colorado State Bank building. The project required coordinating electrical systems with preservation requirements, managing a team of 12 specialists, and interfacing with city planning committees who scrutinized every decision. I worked 60-hour weeks, but the challenge energized me in ways I hadn't experienced since college. The project's success led to recognition from the Denver Construction Association and referrals for private consulting work. I registered Gibson Electrical Consulting as a side business, taking on residential projects that provided both additional income and creative satisfaction. Word spread through professional networks, and soon I was booked solid with weekend consultations. I upgraded my townhouse, systematically installing smart home technology and replacing builder-grade fixtures with quality alternatives. The kitchen received new appliances, the master bathroom got a complete renovation, and I converted the smallest bedroom into a home office equipped for consulting work. Each improvement felt like claiming space that truly belonged to me. Through volunteer work at the Denver Animal Shelter, I met Sarah, a veterinarian whose competence with anxious animals impressed me immediately. She approached her work with calm authority, speaking softly to frightened dogs, while efficiently administering care that reduced their suffering. Her intelligence was evident in conversations that ranged from animal behavior to urban planning to philosophy. Our first date extended from dinner to a late-night walk through downtown Denver, discussing everything from building design to travel dreams. Sarah had grown up in a military family that moved frequently, giving her perspective on adaptation and self-reliance. She'd put herself through veterinary school, with scholarships, and work-study programs, graduating debt-free through careful planning and determination. I was cautious about discussing my family situation, offering only general comments about preferring independence. Sarah noticed my reluctance but didn't press for details, respecting boundaries while sharing her own background freely. Our relationship developed naturally over shared interests and compatible values. Sarah appreciated my work ethic and precision with details. I admired her compassion for vulnerable animals and her practical approach to problem solving. We began spending weekends together, hiking Colorado trails or working on home improvement projects that combined our skills. The contrast between Sarah's supportive presence and my family's emotional drain became increasingly obvious. When I mentioned my promotion to senior project manager, Sarah planned a celebration dinner and bought a bottle of champagne she'd been saving for special occasions. When I told my family the same news, my mother responded with a brief "congratulations" before launching into detailed complaints about the twins' behavioral issues. Sarah met my parents accidentally when we encountered them at a restaurant during their anniversary dinner. The meeting lasted less than 10 minutes, but Sarah witnessed my mother's dismissive response to my consulting business success and my father's complete lack of interest in my current projects. During their brief conversation, Amanda called my mother's cell phone, and my parents immediately became animated, discussing the twins' latest achievements while ignoring Sarah and me entirely. My mother spoke to Amanda for 5 full minutes at our table, offering advice about kindergarten placement and promising to research private schools. After my parents left, Sarah sat quietly for several minutes before speaking. "That was illuminating," she said carefully. "I understand now why you don't talk about family much." I maintained minimal contact with my parents through occasional text messages and brief phone calls. I sent birthday cards but declined most invitations, citing work obligations that were increasingly true as my consulting business expanded. My parents interpreted my distance as temporary sulking that would resolve itself when I matured and accepted family responsibilities. They made dismissive comments to relatives about my selfish phase and expressed confidence that I would come around when they really needed me. Amanda seemed oblivious to any tension, assuming I was simply busy with work. Her social media posts continued featuring perfect family moments with professional quality photography, creating an image of effortless happiness that required significant financial investment to maintain. The family's assumption of my eventual compliance became clear when Todd appeared unexpectedly at my office on a Thursday afternoon in late spring. He looked exhausted, his usually confident demeanor replaced by nervous energy and dark circles under his eyes. "Gibson, I need to talk to you about something important." He began glancing around my office with obvious discomfort. "Can we go somewhere private?" We walked to a coffee shop 2 blocks from my building, where Todd ordered a large coffee with extra espresso shots and seemed to struggle with how to begin the conversation. "The truth is, we're in serious financial trouble." He finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "The house is mortgaged way beyond its value, our credit cards are maxed out, and we're 3 months behind on the girls' private school tuition." The revelation shocked me because their social media presence showed constant vacations, restaurant meals, and new purchases. "How is that possible?" I asked. "You both work, and real estate has been strong in Denver." Todd's explanation revealed years of financial mismanagement disguised by credit and optimistic assumptions. They'd bought their house at the market peak with minimal down payment, assuming property values would continue rising indefinitely. They'd used credit cards to fund lifestyle choices that exceeded their actual income, always believing Todd's next big sale would resolve their budget shortfalls. Your parents have been telling Amanda that you're just going through a phase. Todd continued, his desperation becoming more obvious. They keep saying you'll come around when we really need you, that you were raised to be the responsible one who takes care of family. The manipulation became clear. My parents had been preparing Amanda to expect my financial support while simultaneously cutting me out of inheritance and family decision-making. They'd trained me to be responsible and reliable, then planned to exploit those qualities while rewarding Amanda's dependence and financial irresponsibility. We all just assumed. We counted on you being there, Todd concluded miserably. I know that sounds terrible now, but your whole family talks about you like you're the safety net for everyone else. I sat in that coffee shop, watching Todd fidget with his empty cup, understanding finally that my family had systematically trained me to be their emergency backup plan while ensuring I received none of the benefits of family membership. I need to think about this, I told Todd honestly. This is a lot of information to process. I drove home through Denver traffic, Sarah's veterinary training running through my mind. When animals are injured, they either fight, flee, or freeze. My family had been injured by their own choices, and they expected me to fight for them, while they froze in helplessness. But I was no longer the same person they'd trained to rescue them. 8 months into my independence experiment, disaster struck my family with the efficiency of a natural catastrophe. My father's heart attack occurred on a Tuesday morning while he was mowing their front lawn, collapsing suddenly with chest pains that sent my mother into panic mode. The emergency room doctors explained that Robert had suffered a significant cardiac event requiring immediate bypass surgery. His age and overall health meant a complicated recovery process with months of restricted activity, cardiac rehabilitation, and expensive medications not fully covered by his Postal Service retirement insurance. Medical bills began accumulating immediately. The surgery alone cost $47,000, with insurance covering roughly 60% after deductibles and co-payments. Cardiac rehabilitation would cost another $12,000 over 6 months. Prescription medications added $300 monthly to their budget. Simultaneously, my father's inability to work meant the loss of his part-time consulting income that had been supplementing their retirement funds. The combination of increased medical expenses and reduced income created an immediate crisis that exposed how financially vulnerable their situation had become. Meanwhile, Amanda and Todd's debt crisis reached its inevitable conclusion. The foreclosure notice arrived by certified mail on the same day my father entered the hospital, creating a perfect storm of family financial disasters that overwhelmed everyone's capacity to think clearly. Their house, purchased for $420,000 at the market peak, was now worth approximately $300,000 due to neighborhood changes and market corrections. They owed $410,000 on the mortgage, plus $37,000 in credit card debt, plus $12,000 in unpaid private school tuition. Todd's real estate income had virtually disappeared during the economic downturn affecting Denver's market. New construction projects were delayed or canceled. Existing home sales slowed dramatically, and commercial properties sat vacant for months. His last significant commission check had arrived 4 months earlier, and his pipeline contained no promising prospects. Amanda called me crying on Wednesday evening, alternating between panic about losing their house and guilt about my father's condition. "Gibson, we need $60,000 immediately, or we lose everything," she sobbed into the phone. The bank won't extend the foreclosure deadline, and Todd's job situation isn't getting better. My mother called an hour later with a completely different tone. Gone was any pretense of asking for help or acknowledging my independent status. Instead, she delivered demands with the authority of someone accustomed to unquestioned obedience. Gibson, you need to step up for this family emergency," she declared without preliminaries. Your father's medical bills will probably cost us $30,000 after insurance. Amanda needs $60,000 to save her house. You have savings and you're single with no responsibilities. It's time to do your duty as a son and brother. I asked about Amanda's contribution to the family emergency fund, expecting some acknowledgement that both children should participate in supporting our parents' medical crisis. My mother's response was immediate and venomous. She has children to feed and a house payment to make. You're single with no real obligations. This is what family means, Gibson. When people need help, you provide it. I explained calmly that while I sympathized with both emergency situations, I wasn't responsible for fixing financial problems I hadn't created. I offered to research assistance programs for my father's medical care and help Amanda explore bankruptcy alternatives, but I wouldn't liquidate my retirement accounts to solve their crises. The conversation escalated quickly. My mother accused me of being heartless and selfish, abandoning family when they needed me most. She declared that if I didn't provide financial assistance immediately, she would cut off all contact and tell extended family members about my refusal to help. You were raised better than this, she concluded angrily. I'm ashamed to call you my son if you won't help your own family in crisis. Thursday brought unexpected complications that revealed the true scope of my family's financial manipulation. My great-aunt Eleanor, my father's 82-year-old sister, called me in tears from her assisted living facility in Colorado Springs. King Gibson, honey, I need to ask you about the money, she began hesitantly. Your mother told me you'd pay me back once she explained the family emergency to you. But it's been 3 months and my Social Security isn't enough to cover my medication costs without that $3,000. My stomach dropped as I realized the implications. Aunt Eleanor, I never authorized anyone to borrow money on my behalf. What exactly did my mother tell you? The full story emerged slowly as Eleanor recalled conversations with my mother from the past 6 months. Linda had been calling elderly family members, explaining that she needed temporary financial help, but that Gibson would repay everyone once the family situation was properly explained to him. Eleanor had withdrawn $3,000 from her small savings account, money she'd been keeping for medical emergencies and end-of-life expenses. My Uncle Frank had liquidated a $5,000 investment account to help his nephew's family. Cousin Betty had borrowed against her home equity to provide $2,000. In total, my mother had fraudulently borrowed nearly $15,000 from elderly relatives on fixed incomes, promising repayment from me without my knowledge or consent. She'd exploited their trust and my reputation for responsibility to solve immediate financial problems while creating devastating consequences for vulnerable family members. I spent Thursday evening calling each elderly relative, personally documenting the amounts borrowed and the promises made. Each conversation broke my heart as I realized how my mother had manipulated people who could least afford financial losses. Uncle Frank, 87 years old and living on Social Security and a small military pension, had liquidated his emergency fund, believing he was helping his responsible nephew through temporary difficulties. Cousin Betty, a widow with limited resources, had put her home at risk to help family members she trusted. By Friday morning, I understood that my family hadn't just exploited me financially and emotionally. They had systematically defrauded elderly relatives using my name and reputation as collateral, creating legal and ethical violations that extended far beyond simple family dysfunction. My mother's final phone call that week contained threats I hadn't expected. If you don't help us immediately, I'm telling everyone in our extended family and your workplace about how you're abandoning your sick father and homeless sister. People need to know what kind of person you really are. The manipulation had evolved into blackmail, but the threatened exposure would reveal their fraudulent activities more than my financial independence. I was no longer dealing with family pressure. I was dealing with criminal behavior that required legal intervention. I scheduled an emergency consultation with Patricia Coleman, an attorney specializing in elder financial abuse and family legal matters. Her office occupied the 15th floor of a downtown Denver building with windows overlooking the construction projects I'd helped design. Patricia listened without interruption as I presented documentation of my mother's fraudulent borrowing scheme. I'd prepared a comprehensive file including signed statements from each elderly relative bank records, showing the unauthorized use of my name and recorded phone conversations where my family discussed their manipulation tactics. This is textbook elder financial abuse, Patricia explained after reviewing my evidence. Your mother has committed fraud by misrepresenting her authority to borrow money on your behalf. The fact that she targeted elderly relatives on fixed incomes makes this particularly serious under Colorado law. She outlined potential legal consequences, including criminal charges for fraud, civil liability for damages, and court-ordered restitution to victims. The systematic nature of the scheme and the vulnerability of the victims made prosecution likely if we chose to pursue formal charges. However, Patricia continued, the most concerning development is the defensive strategy your family is planning. Based on your description, they're preparing to accuse you of the exact crimes your mother has committed. I began visiting each elderly relative personally to document their situations and explain my commitment to recovering their money through legal channels. These conversations revealed the emotional damage my mother's manipulation had caused beyond the financial losses. Eleanor had been afraid to buy prescription medications rationing pills to stretch her limited budget. Uncle Frank had canceled a dental procedure he needed, believing he couldn't afford the expense after helping his nephew's family. Cousin Betty had developed anxiety about her financial security, losing sleep, over concerns about maintaining her home. Each visit strengthened my resolve to pursue justice regardless of family consequences. These vulnerable people had been exploited by someone they trusted, using my name and reputation as weapons against them. Meanwhile, family pressure intensified, as my parents and Amanda realized I was documenting their activities rather than complying with their demands. Amanda began showing up at my workplace, staging emotional confrontations in the lobby of Morrison Construction. During one particularly dramatic scene, she brought Chloe and Madison with her, allowing them to cry loudly, while she demanded that I explain to my nieces why their uncle was destroying their family. She claimed I was traumatizing children by refusing to save their house. "You're being selfish and cruel," Amanda declared in front of my colleagues and clients. "These little girls don't understand why their uncle won't help them when he has plenty of money sitting in the bank." My supervisor, Jennifer Martinez, witnessed one of these confrontations and privately expressed concern about personal drama affecting our professional environment. I explained briefly that I was dealing with family members who had unrealistic financial expectations, but I realized Amanda's public manipulation tactics could damage my career reputation. Sarah attended another workplace confrontation, arriving to meet me for lunch, just as Amanda was staging her latest performance. Watching Amanda use her daughters as emotional weapons to manipulate their uncle horrified Sarah, whose veterinary experience had exposed her to various forms of abuse and neglect. That woman is using those children like props," Sarah observed afterward. "Everything about her body language and timing suggests calculated manipulation, rather than genuine desperation." Sarah helped me recognize patterns of emotional blackmail I'd been conditioned to accept as normal family behavior. Amanda's threats, my mother's guilt tactics, and the family's systematic devaluation of my autonomy represented abuse dynamics I'd never identified because they'd been disguised as love and family obligation. The most shocking development came when Patricia called with urgent news. Through her professional network, she'd learned that Amanda and my mother were consulting with a different attorney about filing elder abuse charges against me. "They're planning to argue that you've been financially controlling your elderly parents and refusing to provide support, despite having legal obligations as their son," Patricia explained. "It's a projection strategy where they're accusing you of exactly what your mother has been doing to your elderly relatives. The false accusation strategy could destroy my career, professional reputation, and legal standing if successful." Even defending against fabricated charges would cost thousands of dollars and months of legal proceedings that would interfere with my work and relationships. This is sophisticated manipulation, Patricia warned. They're trying to criminally frame you for their own illegal activities. We need to move aggressively to protect your interests and expose their actual crimes before they can implement their false accusation plan. I authorized Patricia to begin formal legal proceedings against my family, including criminal referrals to the district attorney's office and civil litigation to recover money stolen from elderly relatives. The decision felt like crossing a bridge that would permanently separate me from my family of origin. But protecting innocent elderly people from continued exploitation mattered more than preserving relationships with people who viewed me as a resource to be manipulated rather than a person to be loved. Patricia and I developed a comprehensive legal strategy designed to document my family's criminal activities while protecting me from their planned false accusations. The approach required careful timing and thorough evidence collection to ensure successful prosecution. We began by installing legal recording equipment in my home and vehicle, ensuring compliance with Colorado's one-party consent laws for documenting conversations. I would invite my family for a meeting under the pretense of discussing financial assistance, then allow them to reveal their manipulation tactics and fraudulent activities on record. The family meeting was scheduled for Saturday afternoon at my townhouse neutral territory, where I could control the environment and ensure clear audio recording. I told my parents and Amanda that I wanted to discuss how I might help with their financial emergencies language that encouraged them to speak freely about their expectations and strategies. My mother arrived first, immediately launching into demands about liquidating my retirement accounts to fund both my father's medical expenses and Amanda's house payments. She spoke with casual entitlement about my money, treating my savings as family resources that should be distributed according to her priorities. "You've always been selfish with money," she declared, settling into my living room chair like she owned it. "Even as a child, you hoarded your allowance instead of sharing with Amanda. Now you're doing the same thing as an adult when your family needs help." When I mentioned the elderly relatives who had been asked for money, my mother's response was immediate and revealing. "Those people understand family obligations better than you do. Eleanor was happy to help because she knows you'll pay her back once you stop being stubborn about this." Amanda arrived with Todd and the twins, immediately creating chaos designed to prevent serious conversation. The girls ran through my house touching everything, while Amanda made comments about my selfish lifestyle and wasted space that could better serve families with real needs. "Well, this whole house could fit 3 families like ours," Amanda observed, examining my home office setup. "You're living like a rich person while your nieces might become homeless. How does that make you feel as their uncle?" Todd seemed uncomfortable with the manipulation tactics, but participated by outlining their debt situation in detail. He revealed additional gambling losses he'd hidden from Amanda, bringing their total debt burden to over $250,000 when combined with their underwater mortgage. The conversation became more revealing when I asked about their long-term financial planning and expectations for my continued support. My mother outlined a comprehensive plan where I would cover their immediate crisis costs, then provide ongoing monthly support for my father's medical expenses and Amanda's family budget shortfalls. "Wendent, we're family," my mother explained matter-of-factly. "This is what families do for each other. You help when people need it, and eventually someone helps you when you need it." When I asked what help I could expect to receive, the silence was deafening. Finally, Amanda laughed uncomfortably. "You don't really need help, Gibson. You're single, you have a good job, you don't have real responsibilities like we do." The most damaging admissions came when I pressed them about the elderly relatives and the promises made using my name. My mother showed no remorse or acknowledgement of wrongdoing, instead expressing irritation that I was making a big deal about temporary borrowing arrangements. "Eleanor and Frank understand that family emergencies require sacrifice. my mother said dismissively. They know you're good for the money once you stop acting like a child about this situation. Amanda revealed their backup plan if I continued refusing their demands. We've been talking to a lawyer about getting you declared financially responsible for Dad's care, she announced proudly. You can't just abandon elderly parents when they need medical support. The recording captured them discussing their strategy of filing elder abuse charges against me if I didn't comply with their financial demands. They spoke casually about framing me for crimes my mother had committed, treating false accusations as legitimate tactics for getting their way. People need to know what kind of son abandons his sick father, my mother added. If you won't do the right thing voluntarily, maybe legal consequences will change your mind. The meeting lasted 2 hours, during which my family revealed the full scope of their manipulation fraud and planned criminal accusations against me. They left my house confident that they'd successfully pressured me into compliance, unaware that every word had been legally recorded. Sunday morning, I met with Patricia to review the recorded evidence and finalize our legal strategy. The recordings provided clear documentation of elder financial abuse fraud conspiracy to file false charges and systematic manipulation extending back years. This is more than enough evidence for criminal prosecution, Patricia confirmed after reviewing the audio files. Your mother has confessed to multiple felonies, and Amanda has outlined their conspiracy to frame you for crimes you didn't commit. We prepared formal complaints to the district attorney's office, including criminal referrals for fraud, elder abuse, and conspiracy charges. Civil litigation would follow to recover money stolen from elderly relatives and establish legal protections preventing future manipulation. Monday morning, Patricia served my family with legal notices outlining their choices. They could sign comprehensive settlement agreements acknowledging their crimes and agreeing to make restitution, or they could face criminal prosecution and civil liability that could result in prison time and financial ruin. The settlement option included admissions of guilt court-supervised repayment plans for elderly victims and legal restrictions preventing them from using my name or reputation for any financial purposes. They would also be prohibited from contacting my workplace or interfering with my professional relationships. My family had 24 hours to respond to the settlement offer before Patricia filed criminal charges with the district attorney's office. Their manipulation tactics had been turned against them with legal consequences, replacing family guilt as the primary motivational factor in our relationship. The legal settlement negotiations revealed my family's complete lack of preparation for consequences. They'd operated for so long without accountability that facing actual legal liability shocked them into compliance faster than I'd expected. My parents signed the settlement agreement Tuesday afternoon, admitting to elder financial abuse and agreeing to court-supervised restitution payments to their elderly victims. The agreement required them to work with a financial counselor to develop realistic budgets that prioritized repaying the $15,000 stolen from vulnerable relatives. Amanda and Todd's situation proved more complicated because their financial crisis was too severe for simple restitution agreements. They filed for Chapter 7 bankruptcy protection, which eliminated most of their unsecured debt, but required them to surrender their house and accept 7 years of restricted credit access. The bankruptcy proceedings revealed the full extent of their financial irresponsibility. Todd had hidden gambling debts totaling $38,000, accumulated over 3 years of sports betting and online poker losses. Amanda had spent $18,000 on credit cards for vacations, clothing, and entertainment expenses that exceeded their actual income capacity. My father's first words after reviewing the settlement terms surprised everyone. "I owe you an apology, Gibson," he said quietly, looking older than his 68 years. "I've been aware of your mother's favoritism toward Amanda for years, but I was too conflict avoidant to intervene." His recent heart attack had given him perspective on legacy and relationships that decades of comfortable avoidance had prevented. "We raised you to be responsible and reliable. Then, We exploited those qualities while rewarding Amanda's dependency and entitlement. That wasn't fair to either of you. Either of. The apology felt significant because it acknowledged patterns I'd experienced but never heard validated. My father wasn't ready for complete relationship repair, but his recognition of unfair treatment provided closure I hadn't expected to receive. I established clear boundaries for future family interaction. I would maintain minimal contact with my parents during my father's recovery period, providing emotional support without financial assistance. They would need to develop alternative arrangements for their aging care needs because I would not serve as their unpaid caregiver. Amanda's response to the legal consequences evolved through predictable stages of grief and acceptance. Initial anger gave way to depression as she realized how unsustainable their lifestyle had become. The bankruptcy forced radical downsizing that ultimately improved their financial stability. They moved from their 4-bedroom house with 3-car garage to a modest rental duplex with 2 bedrooms and shared outdoor space. The twins adjusted better than their parents to simpler living arrangements that required cooperation and creativity rather than constant new purchases. Todd found work with a property management company that provided steady income with modest growth potential, rather than the feast or famine cycle of commission-based real estate sales. Amanda took part-time work at a dental office, contributing to family income for the first time since the twins were born. The most satisfying outcome was protecting the elderly relatives who'd been exploited by my mother's manipulation. The court-supervised restitution plan ensured they received full repayment with interest restoring their financial security and dignity. I established a small emergency fund administered through the Denver Community Foundation to help elderly family members avoid future financial exploitation. The fund provided assistance with unexpected medical expenses or home repairs, without requiring them to seek help from potentially manipulative relatives. My relationship with Sarah deepened through this crisis, as she witnessed my integrity in protecting vulnerable people despite family pressure. Her admiration for my character development strengthened our bond and accelerated our commitment to building a future together. Professionally, my handling of the family legal crisis demonstrated problem-solving skills and ethical principles that enhanced my reputation. Colleagues respected my protection of elderly relatives and my refusal to be manipulated by family dysfunction. My consulting business expanded significantly as word spread about my competence and reliability. I hired 2 part-time assistants to manage the administrative aspects of client relationships while I focused on technical consulting and project development. Gibson Electrical Consulting became profitable enough to support reduced hours at Morrison Construction, allowing me to pursue more creative and challenging projects while building long-term financial security through diversified income streams. 6 months after the legal settlement, I proposed to Sarah during a hiking trip in Rocky Mountain National Park. She accepted enthusiastically, and we began planning a wedding that would reflect our values of simplicity, authenticity, and community support. Our engagement party took place in the backyard of my townhouse, decorated with lights I'd installed myself and flowers from Sarah's garden. My parents attended, maintaining respectful but limited interaction as we navigated our new relationship boundaries. Amanda and Todd also came looking happier and more relaxed than I'd seen them in years. Their simplified lifestyle had reduced stress and improved their marriage as they learned to cooperate rather than compete financially. My great-aunt Eleanor gave a toast that brought tears to many guests' eyes. She thanked me for my courage in exposing the financial manipulation and protecting elderly family members from continued exploitation. Gibson's strength came not from anger or revenge, Eleanor observed, but from choosing truth and justice over family dysfunction. He showed us that real love means protecting people from harm, even when those causing harm are family members. The evening concluded with Sarah and me discussing our future plans while cleaning up from the party. We talked about travel destinations, career goals, and the family we wanted to build together based on mutual respect and genuine partnership. I realized that my family's rejection had actually freed me to create relationships based on choice rather than obligation. Sarah loved me for who I was, not what I could provide. Our friends supported our happiness without demanding financial contributions or emotional manipulation. The final scene of my transformation took place in my home office, where I worked on consulting projects that helped other families navigate construction and renovation decisions. A new client had called about inherited property disputes, describing family conflicts that sounded familiar. Sarah brought me coffee and mentioned the potential client's request for help with inherited property management. I smiled, recognizing another opportunity to help people build strong foundations both literally and metaphorically. My internal reflection summarized the profound life lesson this experience had taught me. I spent years being told I came last, but I learned that putting yourself first doesn't mean putting others last. It means building a life strong enough to genuinely help others from a place of strength, not obligation. Real family supports each other's success, not dependence. Healthy relationships require reciprocity, respect, and genuine care, not manipulation and exploitation. Sometimes the greatest act of love is refusing to enable dysfunction, even when that refusal costs you relationships you thought you needed. True security comes from building your own foundation, rather than waiting for others to provide one. When you stop accepting less than you deserve, you create space for relationships that offer more than you imagined possible. The family that values you will never make you choose between their happiness and your well-being. The people who truly love you want you to thrive, not just survive in service to their needs. I'd found my real family through choice, commitment, and shared values. Sarah, Marcus, the colleagues who respected my integrity, the elderly relatives I'd protected, the clients who trusted my expertise. All these relationships formed a support network based on mutual benefit rather than one-sided obligation. Looking ahead to marriage with Sarah and the family we'd create together, I felt grateful for the painful lessons that had taught me the difference between genuine love and manipulative control. Our children would grow up understanding that family means supporting each other's dreams, not exploiting each other's strengths. The phone rang as I finished my reflection, another potential client seeking help with complex family property decisions. I answered with confidence, ready to help someone else build something solid and lasting. Building strong foundations had become more than my profession. It had become my life's work. Have you ever found yourself being taken for granted by family members who expect your support but offer little in return? What boundaries have you set to protect your own well-being while still maintaining family relationships? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like this video to help others who might be struggling with similar family dynamics. Subscribe for more stories about finding strength through difficult family situations, and share this with someone who might need to hear that it's okay to put their own well-being first. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that building healthy boundaries is an act of self-love that ultimately benefits everyone involved. Until next time, keep building the life you deserve on a foundation of mutual respect and genuine care.